Good morning, everybody. This is Filament Bros, and today we will be having a comprehensive tutorial about supports. Everything that you need to know to support your models and make sure that your models come out as best as possible. If we start by coming over here to the support tab, you can see I have enable support turned on. I nearly always have this on just when I know that I have more complicated models like this. The type, I almost always use tree supports. I rarely ever use auto normal supports just because tree supports are a lot easier to take off. They do require a little bit more processing power from your computer, but it's definitely worth it waiting the couple extra seconds to process it. The style we use is tree slim. This saves a little bit on materials cost, but it's not as structurally strong as the tree strong or default. I think it's worth it though. It's a lot easier to crush if you have pliers or anything like that when removing supports. And then we can go from there and start looking at support painting. So if we go up the top, we have support painting. You can also press the hotkey L, and this will open up support painting. So this will be a paintbrush where you can left click to paint supports on, and then right click to paint where supports will not be. I personally like using on overhangs only. So let's take a look at this bridge here. I want this to be supported, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that with the blue. And I can see, okay, this is exactly where the supports are going to go. I don't want supports over here, so let's just paint that red, and we can go ahead and slice that and see what that looks like. This gives you fantastic control as to where things are going to be exactly supported, and I just think that it's pretty nice and easy to use when the auto generation system is a little faulty sometimes. So let's go ahead and slice that and see how it looks. So now that this is sliced, we can see that the supports are now up and underneath that bridge, holding it up. I would probably keep something like this. I think that that's fantastic. So that's a really nice, easy way to control exactly where those supports are going. If we go over here though, we can see that these supports are sort of interlapping and all up in the window frames. Now, this is something that's a big hassle. If I were to print it like this, I would have window frames getting destroyed as I'm trying to clip and get all of these tree supports out of there. So I would go ahead and have to reprint all of these window frames just to get the supports out, which is just a huge hassle. It's really not worth it. And there's ways that we can easily fix that. So if we go back into our prepare tab, there's a couple different ways we can do that. The easiest for these architectural models is going to just hit support critical regions only. So let's go ahead and slice that, and I'll show you what that does. That essentially is going to take away any of those supports that are not really needed, and it oftentimes cleans up models a ton. So we can see how much time and filament we're saving, and hassle just having to reprint things. So that removed all of those tree supports that were inside. So I could go ahead and print this just as it is, and it would be perfectly sound, and all of these window frames would be printed just fine. So I don't have to go through and clip out windows and redo that. So that's a really quick and easy trick that I like to use when making my models, and it saves me a big headache. Something that is to note though, is that these undersides might get a little bit stringy just as that first layer is not fully adhered. So you can just go through and carefully clip those out. But trust me, it's a lot easier to do that than it is to go ahead and reprint your window frames and clip everything out. So this is a trick that I like to use that just makes it a little bit easier on your post-process. So let's look at this other half, and let's go ahead and slice this, and I'll show you that support critical regions only doesn't always do the best job. So there's something else that we can use that will remove supports in places that we don't need them, and that's going to be called a support blocker. So I'm gonna go ahead and slice this up and show you guys an example of a spot that I would need a support blocker. So if I go ahead and pull these down, we can see we have all these tree supports in there, and there's no way that I would ever be able to get some pliers back there and get these supports out. These would just be trapped in the model forever. And I know that I'm not even going to be able to see the roof part. So it's not that big of a deal if there's some strings coming down. So I'll go back to my prepare tab, click on my model, and then I'll right click and go ahead and hit add support blocker. I like to use the cube, but there's all sorts of different versions and shapes that you can use. And this will going to add this little support blocker. You can see it's a little cube like that. And what I like to use is the move tool so I can get it precisely up in there. So we know that it's going to be right in this back corner. So I will do that. Let's raise it a little bit so it's nice and level with where I need it to be. Let's push that down a little bit. And then we can go ahead and push this over into the model. So that's going to be good. I also like to scale this up and down depending. So let's make it a little bit like that and a little bigger, maybe a little that, and a little bit higher. So anywhere that this is touching, no supports will be generated. So let's go ahead and slice that and I'll show you what I need. Okay, so now that it's sliced, we can go ahead and see all of that back area that we wouldn't have been able to access without the support blocker has now removed all the supports. So now we're saving time and filament for areas that were completely unnecessary to have supports. And this saves a huge headache of printing something and then realizing, oh wait, I had supports back there, I have to get them out. And I really like using that. So those are just some little tips and tricks on how to best use supports. Let me know if you have any more questions. This is just my process, but there are obviously other ways to do these things. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments. We'll feel free to answer. Also, comment if you have any other recommendations for tutorial videos, anything you'd like to see. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.